What's up, turkeys? It's another Butt on Film, and today we're gonna be talking about anime bootlegs. In Eyesore Cinema, Toronto's Eyesore Cinema, if you're not from Toronto, it's a video rental shop I frequent quite a bit and hang out and all that stuff. Daniel, the owner, got a bunch of boxes of anime bootlegs. So I'm going to go through some of the anime bootlegs I scrounged out of the boxes there. I just picked up a bunch of random stuff that, why not? Give it a shot. I'm kind of a fan of anime. It's kind of weird because, like, anime is got a pretty rabid fan base now. I guess because a lot of the people who are of a slightly younger generation than me, slightly younger, maybe significantly, I'm not entirely sure who's the main fan base of anime now. They probably grew up watching like Pokemon, that sort of thing. That missed me. I was a little too old for Pokemon when it came out. So I kind of grew as an anime fan out of more weird stuff like, well, I guess weird stuff. Akira, one of the biggest like anime movies ever, probably the biggest, at least the most known in North America. And seeing like, all the big titles like Perfect Blue, that sort of thing, and slowly checking out more stuff as I went along. So I kind of I like anime, but I can't keep up with all the stuff that comes out constantly, especially right now. I guess a lot, like they're just pumping out shows constantly. So I sort of catch bits here and there, and I generally like it. It's fun. I like that it's a little more. You can't really say anime is like animation for adults. A lot of it really isn't. It's meant for like, teens or preteens, that sort of thing, or children at heart. I don't know. Something about it seems a little less obnoxious or pandering to me than like the North American Disney animated films, that sort of thing. In North America, it seems like their idea of animation is either it's directly for children or it's meant to be like sort of grown-up comedy shows, like sitcom type stuff, like The Simpsons, and then a bunch of other things that followed that. So anime is a bit different, like a little bit different. There's a bit more variety in what goes on, although there are definitely certain tropes that are in so many series. Get to the bootlegs. Let's just talk about that stuff. So first one I put on, again, I just grabbed some random stuff. So I just grabbed this. I can't say for certain that the giant boobs on the cover didn't make me want to watch it a little more. I mean, it's anime. It's not exactly the classiest thing in the world. This show is called Zero no Tsukema. I'm probably saying that super wrong. But it's basically like, it takes place in this Harry Potter style, like, fantasy world. I literally, in the last video, said fantasy is mostly for dorks. But thinking about it, I'm like, I actually do enjoy quite a large amount of fantasy movies and stuff like that. Maybe, deep down, I could be a dork myself. Maybe. But anyway, Zero no Sekama. There's this sort of Harry Potter world, and this girl here is like a little witch lady going to witch and wizard school, like a Harry Potter type school. And she's sort of famous for everything that every time she tries to do a spell, it turns out wrong. And not just like she doesn't do it, like stuff explodes, stuff goes horribly wrong. So on their, like, they just start this new semester of school, and in this semester they have to summon their familiars with their magic powers. And their familiar, if you're not familiar with witches, like a cat or something like that, or in this like weird fantasy creatures like dragons and whatnot, that they'll be attached to them for life, and they'll help them do their bidding and various other stuff. So this girl, because she gets every spell she does wrong, she accidentally summons like a human guy from regular Japan world, the regular world, and because of some sort of weird something, he's really good at fighting because of something that went weird in the magical spell. So he does a lot of the like sword fighting when it comes to dragons and whatnot. And of course, eventually, because it's an anime and they're in high school and all that stuff, or like wizard high school, the two main characters, this girl and the guy, end up basically becoming a relationship. Kind of a will they, won't they, but they fight throughout the whole thing. And basically, like he accidentally like will trip into another girl's boobs or something along those lines, and the main girl will explode him with her magic. And it gets to the point where it becomes a running gag in the show that basically they're like a BDSM couple. So she's constantly whipping him because he's like supposed to be like her slave familiar guy. And whenever he does something bad, she'll whip him, and then just somebody will walk in and they'll be like half dressed and sweaty, and he's covered with whip marks, and they're just panting, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I'll come back later." So it's a fun little show. That joke gets a little old after a bit because so many shows like constantly like, because it's kind of boring, I guess, to watch, or it's really hard to write like a couple that is like a highly functional couple who's like they get along well and do stuff like it's hard to write that without coming across as tacky or cheesy. So a lot of shows do the like they hate each other then they love each other type thing, but that also can get pretty annoying sometimes. It's especially bad in the second season. This little bootleg was like 3 seasons and an OVA, which is like a little short, not a movie, but like an in-between seasons of stuff. So it was a lot of show. The subtitles, because it is a bootleg, the subtitles on some of these are kind of hit or miss. Like this one, it was like in the first and third season, the subtitles were like, I can get the gist of what they're saying. It's a little funky, but I can get the gist. Then the second season, for some reason, it's like perfect subtitles. But like a few of them, it's like, I think I know what they're saying, basically. So I get it enough that I'm not missing main points. And then this one, what is this called? Rino Lagrange Flower Declaration of Your Heart. Just spills off the tongue, that title. This is like the first season of this show. I got this one because it's a giant robot show, and if you're gonna get a bunch of random like anime bootlegs that you don't know what they're about, you got to get at least one giant robot show. You got to get a little bit of everything, all the kind of anime subgenres. So this is like a giant robot show with this girl is like a spunky teenage girl who just likes to help people and do good things, and she's full of energy and just likes to put good energy into the world. And for some reason, the big robot responds really well to her where it doesn't for others. And so she gets to be like the head pilot of this team of robot fighters. There's this character with the short hair is like a princess from another planet who's like not super good in the beginning at flying giant robots, but she picks it up as she goes along and has to conquer her fears and that sort of thing. She's really like accident prone and timid, that sort of thing. So this girl helps her sort of come out of her shell and all that stuff. And this girl actually starts out being like working for the bad guys, and then she joins the good guy team eventually. Because the bad guys kind of fuck her over, as they do. They're bad guys, sort of thing. So it's like a fun show. The first season, again, subtitles actually were pretty good for this one, and this show was pretty fun. So if I did look it up, and there is at least one more season, so I would watch more of it, given the chance. We'll see if that happens. The next one, Moshidora. I bought again, like, you got to get a little sample of everything. And I'm like, well, they're really big on, like, you got to get, like, one sports show and baseball. I like baseball. So I'll get this show about these cute girls who, like, start a baseball team or whatever. Turns out it's not about them playing baseball. This girl, like, becomes the manager of a baseball team because her friend, the high school baseball team, because her friend, who was the manager of the high school baseball team, is really sickly and in a hospital. Spoiler, she dies by the end of the first season. But this girl takes over to, like, make that girl's dream of their high school baseball team making it to nationals come true. So she becomes the manager, and she accidentally buys this book on managing businesses, and she starts applying business management ideas to managing a baseball team, and it is a really big success. And they try all these new things, and it's kind of like, it's interesting in the way that watching that Moneyball movie was interesting. Kinda, you know, I kind of like that Moneyball movie. It was okay. Like, same with this. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It was pretty, it had some interesting ideas. It is clearly, like, they didn't have much of a budget for this one. The animation is not great. A lot of the characters kind of look alike. Some of the male characters, like the guys on the baseball team, are extremely annoying. There's especially one character who just constantly, like, he cannot handle pressure, and he just constantly fucks up. And at some point you're like, just kick him out of the team. Like, I know this is like, he's got to have, like, a big moment where he doesn't screw up in the end. Spoiler, he continues to screw up until the end, but then, like, somebody else gets his back and saves his ass. And he's really whiny too. So, and like 3 other of the guys look exactly the same, so half the time I didn't know who was who. But they're not really, like, characters that much, so, like, most of them are not important, so it's not a big deal. And, like, these extra girls, again, not super important. They just help her manage the baseball team. And she's kind of shy, and she's... Oh, wait, this is the girl who dies. Ha! She's never that, like, standing up in the show. She spends the entire show in a hospital bed. So that kind of threw me for a loop. Anyway, some interesting stuff. They do this one thing... like later in the season where they try this really, like, extreme attempt, like a really, like, wild idea of how to play baseball, where it's basically like no foul. So they only pitch strikes. They don't walk anybody, and what was the other thing? There's another aspect they do to it, but, like, you can imagine, like, if you're only pitching strikes, like, a batter or, like, a team's gonna pick up on that pretty quick, and it can make things pretty hairy. So that got interesting in the third, like, near the end of the season, where they go to, like, the big tournament or whatever. And, like, the actual baseball parts of this show were kind of interesting and fun. If you have any interest in baseball. If not, it's gonna be boring as hell. Maybe the management part will be more interesting. And that is kind of an interesting thing too, like taking a new aspect to managing a sports team or whatever. No. I'll go with the next one. Minami K. This is the like, every cover is like ladies in bikinis or something, or kids. Like, well, that one's a kid, I think. No, they're all like teenage girls. Anime. Japan is a little funky with that sort of stuff. Uh, but yeah, anyway, this is really like, I mean, despite the cover of like they're all in their swimsuits, it's kind of like these three girls are, orphans or whatever. I mean, the parents aren't even really ever talked about. They never talk about it, how they died or what. But they basically like, live on their own under their own sort of wacky rules or whatever. But they're, good kids. They don't party all night and do all the drugs. So they just like, this one's kind of uh, like hyperactive, kind of kooky. And this one's like supposed to be the smart girl, but again, because the subtitles were not great, or maybe just the dialogue isn't particularly well written in the first place, all she ever does is call this one dumb. And I mean, she's good at school, I guess, is the implication, but she's not, doesn't come across as particularly witty. She's honestly kind of annoying. They keep doing this thing where she has this like little alfalfa tuft of hair, and it like moves around and it goes, makes noises, goes beep boop boop, and that's supposed to be cute, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's something specifically for anime people. And then the older sister's just nice and likes to cook a lot. And the first season kind of, by the end of the first season, again, this is like 3 seasons of this in this bootleg. The first season, by the end of it, I'm like, oh, this is actually like slowly became more and more insane, until like I didn't even realize that this is actually a pretty crazy show. Like it seems like just these girls hanging out and sort of like, say, having wacky adventures, but I mean, it's not really that wacky. It's pretty subdued stuff. But like slowly it gets kind of kookier as it goes along. There's 2 characters who, I mean, it would be exaggerating, I think, to say they're trans. They're probably more cross-dressers. I'm not entirely sure. And, the show doesn't really corner them and say, state your thing. But the one character is female by birth, and this girl decides she wants a brother. So she sort of coerces her into dressing in boys' clothes and pretending to be a boy, even though she really likes pretending to be a boy and wearing boys' clothes. And she has 3 older brothers who are, some of the best scenes are with that character and her older brothers and how stupid they are. And then there's another character who is a boy who dresses as a female, so he can hang out at their place. Almost the entirety of the show is people hanging out at their place and eating nice food. So this guy dresses as a female to hang out at their place so he can help the oldest sister cook things, because the youngest sister hates him and wouldn't let him in if he didn't dress as a female. So he has to continually dress as a female. And there's a pretty fun episode where she is like, she finds him trying to buy bras. He's in drag at this point. And because another girl is tired of loaning him all her clothes, so he has to buy his own lady clothes. And she decides to help him buy his first bra, and he's all worried that she's gonna catch him out when she helps him in the change room, but she's just like, I don't think you're ready for your first bra yet. Maybe next year. It's pretty cute. But then, there's this one guy who's like in love with the oldest sister, but it's entirely like he has this whole fantasy of like marrying her, and he thinks because her friends always joke that she takes care of her younger sisters that she actually has 2 kids. So he thinks that she has 2 children, and he has this whole fantasy in his head of like marrying her and doing that, but he has barely ever spoken to her at all. And his fantasy, like, as much as that sounds super creepy, it just drives him to constantly try and make better food and learn how to be a better cook and become a better person generally so he can be the man he thinks she deserves. But he never has the chutzpah, or he's never satisfied in his like little advancements enough to actually show her. So he continually just tries to get better at things without ever actually having the follow through of speaking to her or anything like that. So it could be considered a little creepy, but at the same time, he's really not hurting anybody but himself. And if anything, it's actually making him a better person. So, you know, people are weird. And the next one, Golden Boy. This one I think is kind of like got a bit of a classic status among anime fans. It's like a late 80s, early 90s anime. The sort of golden period of anime, I guess, or whatever age they call it. Golden Boy. It's about this guy who like bikes from job to job. Like he takes part-time random work wherever he can find it. And, you know, I'm watching the first episode, and it's like, oh, he's an idiot. Like, he gets this job working at an office that does computer programming, and everyone in the office is a beautiful lady, and his boss is this lady with ridiculously huge anime boobs that spin around when she gets angry. She's wearing, like, an outfit that, like, no woman would ever wear that to the office. I mean, it's her business, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of wildly inappropriate. I mean, that's like, it's quite a thing. But anyway, so he spends the first bit of the episode, like most of the episode, just fucking up and doing everything wrong. But then the twist reveal is that he's actually a super genius who can master anything in a very short period of time, and that women are all stupid for not having fucked him. But by the time they realize that, he's already biked on to the next town. So he's like, it's pretty ridiculous. But again, it's sort of this weird thing where it's like, that's a pretty messed up message, right? But he ultimately is the one who like suffers a lot because he always like leaves before women come around to him. So he's got all this like extremely pent up horniness. There's like 3 or 4 episodes where they do this same like gag where he ends up like just licking a toilet or letting a bidet spray him in the face because he knows that like a sexy lady just used that one, and he always gets caught doing it, like every time. So, you know, it maybe not the most progressive show in the world, you know. I mean, it's in Japanese anime from the early 90s. You kind of gotta expect some weird sexual politics. But at the same time, it is very silly and funny, and like it's hard to take seriously as a message or anything. I laughed at it quite a bit, so I mean, it's fun. It's really stupid, but fun. Like in all the best ways that something can be stupid. I got Ranma Half. I guess this, like Ranma Half is like a pretty famous anime. I had never seen it before, and you know, I was like, where will I start? Oh, I got some bootlegs, and this is like, I assume this was like multiple OVAs, but upon putting it in, I'm like, this might just be a season of the TV show, and not the first season either. It's kind of interesting, because it reminds me of like being a kid and picking up an issue of a comic at like issue number 158 and being like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on, but there's probably a lot of background I'm missing. Like it does seem like a kind of cool thing. I guess Ranma is a fella. You know, this is like clearly a big inspiration for like Scott Pilgrim, both the manga and probably the movie. I guess Scott Pilgrim would be called a manga, even though it was made in Toronto. It's like a comic book. But yeah, like it's basically he's like his dad gets him engaged to this girl, Akane, something like that. Ranma, he gets engaged to this girl, and basically the dad does it so they can get free room and board from the dad's friend, and because times are tough or something. And both Ranma and his dad seem to have been cursed at, I guess, like a hot water spring or something. I kind of Googled it, but I'm like, hey, that's enough information. Because, again, I was watching it, I'm like, I don't understand really what's going on here at all. So Ranma, when he gets hit with cold water, he turns into a girl. And then when he gets hit with hot water, he turns back into a boy again. And then his dad, when he gets hit with cold water, he turns into a panda and a panda bear. And when he gets hit with hot water, he turns back into a dude again. Or vice versa. It seems to happen to a couple of the characters. There's this guy who is like a wandering kung fu guy who's obsessed with Ranma's fiance, Akane, or whatever her name is. And he gets turned into like a little pig thing whenever he gets hit with water. So running theme throughout it. All the like supporting character ladies in this are trying to get with Ranma, but he's engaged to this other girl. And then all the supporting character guys, well, not all the supporting character guys, this guy and like one other dude are trying to get with Akane, but she's engaged to Ranma. And this guy, I think, is trying to get with the girl who's obsessed with Ranma. I think she's called like Buttergum or Bubblegum or something like that. And, you know, various kung fu issues come up. It's like sort of a comedy kung fu thing. Like I said, like the Scott Pilgrim thing is like a romantic comedy kung fu dealy-doo, you know, a bunch of stuff. And, you know, seems fun. Again, it sort of suffers from because they're, you know, they can't be like they can't be a functional couple, so they just fight all the time. But they're still like a couple. There's one episode in this where they go to like this haunted cave where the spirits of couples that have broken up in the cave force couples to break up in it. And, you know, they get to the part where there are ghosts like trying to get them to break up, but then they start fighting so bad that the ghosts are like, Jesus, and they go away. They're like, we don't want anything to do with that, you know, sort of thing. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of cute in a show, but it's occasionally funny. But, like, you know, you meet those couples in real life and they're like, you get stuck in a room with them and it's a nightmare, you know? So it works most of the time, except for when it doesn't. It's a little grating. And then this one I got, Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Puella Magi Madoka Magica is the name of this show. This one I haven't put in yet. I wanted to bring it up because this is probably my favorite anime I've ever seen. The series of this, and then they did like a feature-length movie after the series. And it's like, the reason why I got the bootleg, and this, I think it says it's only like episodes 1 to 4. Hopefully it's the whole series when I actually put the bootleg in, and hopefully the subtitles aren't terrible. But it's a really amazing show. I mean, even if it's just the first 4 episodes, I'll watch those again because it's never been like I don't think it's ever really been officially released in North America. Maybe like very briefly in an extremely expensive box set, which is now like every so often I look it up online and it's like for each, like it comes in these 3, like you get 4 episode discs sort of thing, and each one of those you get 4 episodes is like over $100. So I'm not buying that. I can't afford it. Even if I could, I'd be like, that's silly to spend that much money on a couple of animes. As much as I do really love this show a lot and think it's like a beautiful piece of art all around, the animation is amazing. So it's basically like they're magical girls, they fight witches, is sort of their thing. They use their magical powers to fight witches. And then it gets a little hairy. It's not this sort of super duper bubbly, fun times Sailor Moony type show that it seems on the surface. It's much more complex and significantly darker than that. But it does these really cool things with the art style, the soundtrack, like the soundtrack to this movie. Whoever did the score, I looked it up many years ago when I actually did watch this show, but I don't know now. It's a really amazing score. Again, it's just beautiful. It's really like emotionally powerful. This character here, really interesting, and they're like dynamic as the show goes on, and it's really like a love story, between the two of them, and sort of beyond like what somebody is willing to sacrifice for their love for another person, and ultimately, can that be good or can that be bad? It's interesting. It's quite an interesting show. I don't want to say too much because part of the fun thing is watching it take that turn on you, and you go, "Oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be." Although I guess I kind of spoiled that just by saying that it's not what you thought it was going to be. And the last two, again, I haven't put these in yet, but I got these, like literally all these covers are just half-naked women. I mean, maybe that's why I'm a fan of anime. Like cartoon boobies. Who doesn't? you know? But anyway, so this show is Heaven's Lost Property. I grabbed these bootlegs because a few years back, a friend of mine used to work at you remember the HMV stores? She used to work in the distribution office for them, and they would get constantly sent like free product to, I guess, promote that sort of thing. And a lot of stuff just got left behind at the office that people didn't want to pick up. And she would often go, "Do you want some of this?" And oftentimes a lot of it was the anime stuff because I guess nobody working there liked anime. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. And so I got the second season of Heaven's Lost Property from her for free. And I was sort of hesitant to watch the second season. But again, like, I grew up picking up comic books on issue 197 or whatever. I'm used to coming into stories partway through. So I can kind of pick up what's going on after a bit. And honestly, Heaven's Lost Property is not complex. So it was pretty easy to pick up. It's basically about this, like, pervy guy who some weird angel robot things fall to Earth from, like, another dimension or something along those lines. And they're, like, basically battle robot ladies. But because of some weird thing, they become his, like, harem, It's one of those sort of harem shows, but also like a battle show, and it's funny. This show won me over. There was an episode, like the second episode I saw, was basically the pervy main guy was trying to, figure out a way around his pervosity. And so he was taking all his porno mags up into the woods to bury them. And through a wacky incident, one of the battle robot angels blew up all his porno mags with missiles. So he's all like, nah, he's like completely defeated because deep down he would have never buried them. He's like, I can't let all my porno collection go. So in the end of the episode, they use their weird random battle robot angel magic powers to make all his porn come back in a giant porn parade where just the magazines are walking like people and then there's floats of porn and all that stuff, and he's so super happy. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty great. So that sold me on that show. So yeah, and that's all the pile of the anime bootlegs that I have to show. There's some others that I don't know anything about the show and I haven't put them in yet. So I got a big pile of them because they were cheap and they were anime bootlegs, and I was like, what the hell? Let's grab a bunch and find out. So I don't know. Do I recommend any of them? I actually, of them, maybe. Just because it's only 6 episodes long as well, so the joke about it doesn't really get that old by the end of it. Because again, it repeats it. He works in a new place, mostly around women, and joke's on you, ladies. He's a super genius. You should have fucked him when you had the chance, but he's already in the next town. So that's a fun one. I am watching Ranma half at the moment, so that's pretty fun. I'm enjoying that. But really, honestly, like, if you can find Puella Magi Madoka Magica, when I watched it on, I was like cat sitting at a friend's house who had Netflix, and so I watched it on Netflix. So if Netflix still has it, you can watch it on that, though I really hesitate to recommend Netflix for anything, although they have a good Bollywood section. That's the one bonus of Netflix is anime and Bollywood, I guess. Do not watch the Netflix originals. They're dog shit. The actual ones that Netflix makes, oh my god, I've never seen such terrible, mediocre, shitty fuckballs movies. But Puella Magi Madoka Magica is a really great show, and the movie that followed it up was also amazing. So watch that if you can. I'm still waiting for them to do like a real North American release. Just give me a Blu-ray, you fuckers. I want it. I want it now. But maybe it'll happen. Whatever. Anyway, there'll be another episode at some point. Bye.